It is our third show in 3 days. On Sunday night, Rod and I talked the beginning of 49ers free agency, and stuff has happened since then. We may have to get back together before our normal 2 weeks podcast. And yesterday, Brad and myself, we talked some World Baseball Classic. USA got back in the game by beating the crap out of Canada. So they are in good position to advance in the World Baseball Classic. And now the death lineup with Bry. We're going to talk some Warriors basketball. You predicted it, though. Last time we talked, you said they were going to go 2-2, and they were going to win the 2 hard games at home and lose the 2 easier games on the road. And that's exactly what happened.
I feel like I predict like a lot of things, and then when one of like the 5 of them goes right, I'm like, yeah, but there's still 4 of them wrong. I think I remember saying that though. But I mean, what that fits their theme of this season? What else have they told us? You know, they're gonna lose their away games, they're gonna win their home games, and they're gonna win the really tough home games against the really good teams for some reason,
and have to do it by making crazy comebacks and get a little bit of a benefit of certain players who miss, but then they could probably say, oh yeah, Giannis missed the game, but guess what? We still don't have Wiggins back. We still don't have Gary Payton. So I think that stuff, they probably believe that stuff evens out, but that's kind of the NBA in a nutshell. And I don't know how much you've been following this, but the collective bargaining agreement stuff, where the Players Association is like, yeah, like, these guys don't want to sit. Like, the teams want them to sit, all this stuff about playing a minimum number of games to reach certain thresholds with awards and MVPs and stuff. It is not a good look for the league. Like, now, we can compare it to football. Football's king. I don't know how many games did Tom Brady play last year? Probably all of them, right? I think he played every single game. So if you're a Bucs fan, you're like, that's my guy. He's there every game. And it's not like that with basketball. You buy a ticket, and there's a good chance that one of your favorite players is not playing. And that's what we did, right? When we went to see Detroit, Steph's not playing.
no Wiggins. It was no Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, no Cade Cunningham. Poor Cade Cunningham. He missed almost the whole season.
Yeah, he played like 5 games. But yeah, I mean, that's why I texted, and I know there's so many hoops and that you need to get through in order for something like this to ever change, and it probably won't ever change. But that's why, like, I think you got to go 65 to 71 games in that ballpark, get rid of back-to-backs, and space them out so they're not as common. The regular season can potentially mean more. And I see both sides on which is funny is that, like, you can't even like completely probably get the players' majority vote behind it either, because there's that whole thing where, in the whole legacy thing where it's like, well, Jordan did 81 and 82 and now, we're not going to go anything less than that. And the owner's like, oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll have more games, more home games, more money.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what the answer is. I don't even remember when this load management stuff started. I feel like it was like maybe a San Antonio Spurs thing.
I feel like it was the 2017 year when the Warriors and the Spurs did, when they had KD and like Steph, Klay, KD, and like Draymond all sat. And like on the Spurs side, I think Kawhi and LaMarcus sat too. And there was this fan, like a little kid with the sign, like, I came to see all my favorite players, clearly like, done behind the scenes by the parents, but I came to see my favorite players and no one's here. And like I drove 2,000 miles and no one's here. That's when I first remember starting to see the ramifications and like the fans getting into it. Like, come on, like, this is ridiculous type of thing.
All right. I don't know if this is true. All I did was do a Google search that said, when did load management start in the NBA? It took me to a website called Rookie Road. This website is actually very nice, the way that they have it sorted and organized. According to this website, the origin of the term, something's up with my mic, I think, or maybe my headphones. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The origin of the term load management can be traced back to the 2010s when the San Antonio Spurs would rest their top players. In 2012, the Spurs were fined $250,000 for resting 4 key players during a much anticipated national televised matchup with the Miami Heat. So 2012 was where this started to be a problem with the NBA and TV and fan experience. So we're over 10 years in here.
Yeah, I think things just get. I remember the 2017 one because it's more recent.
Yeah.
And I feel like it got magnified because that Warrior season was just completely magnified when they got Kevin Durant. They had two of the best 5 players in the league. When you sit both of them, you're going to hear about it.
And if I remember correctly, it was either Popovich's reaction to Kerr or Kerr's reaction to Popovich, where one of them was going to sit players, and then the other coach was like, well, if you're going to do it, I'm not going to have all my guys play. And it was one of those like
Yeah, yeah.
gamesmanship things.
Didn't like Quinn Cook go off?
Quinn Cook.
Like someone of the reserves like had like a 30-point game who usually doesn't. I forgot if it was like him or like Jacob Evans or like someone.
Who do you like better, Quinn Cook or Ty Jerome?
Ty Jerome.
I like Ty Jerome better too.
I think they could use a Quinn Cook though, because Quinn Cook was just like shot chucking, and you knew like he was gonna hit a couple. Where Ty Jerome's more of like a in control of the offense, but really I feel like he misleads us to think he's in control of the offense, and all he is there for is really to get his own bucket or.
Was he KD's friend?
Ty Jerome?
No, Quinn Cook.
I think he was a KD and LeBron guy.
Oh, okay. Is he still in the league? Shouldn't those guys be taking
No,
care of him?
if he last I heard he was Sacramento G League.
Oh, okay. That would be amazing if Ty Jerome and KD were buddies.
I think he just became KD's friend through the team because
okay. All right, let's look at some of the latest news that came out over these last couple days. The first one, after he had a nice little reverse dunk there yesterday, Andre Iguodala out for tomorrow's game against the Clippers, or later today, depending on when you listen to this. And our buddy Ben Cruz texted us just before we went on the air, and he said, 180 dunk, and he's cooked, shaking my head. And it's funny because that's what caused Iguodala to have the second absence the last time. Was he went up for a dunk, and even ET on their podcast was kind of making fun of him. And then Andre said, I'll be fine. Like, this one's not going to be too bad. And then he was gone for like 3 weeks or something. So I hope that one is not like this one. What I hope is that Kerr was like, man, if you just give me these last couple minutes, I'll put you on the injury report because you're hurting everywhere anyway. So it doesn't really matter. We'll just say that your wrist hurts or something. So that's kind of what I hope is, because he does need to get a little bit more of a rhythm with the team, because he's replacing, at least as far as I can tell, he's replacing Anthony Lamb's minutes, right? Isn't that what it looks like?
Yeah, it does. And I'm with you. I think we sometimes joke, or we get on him a lot because he clearly, like, if he wasn't so integrated in the system and was so smart as a player, like, he would be out of the league, right? Like, he's just physically not there anymore. Like, I feels like he can get blown by at any point. He's just really he's able to stay in front of people because he's smart defensively, not necessarily because he still has the physical body to do it. And we've gotten on him, but I still think he's important to this team, and that's definitely like someone who they want to have. I think with the rhythm thing though, it's like he's either not shooting it through, not making it. And there's absolutely zero confidence behind the shot right now. So that's where I would have wanted to see him get into a rhythm and maybe hit 1 or 2 bailouts, like one every 3 games.
But Kerr should run a play for him, just like he ran the play for Klay at the beginning of the game. Just run a play and go, dude, you have to shoot this shot if you're open. I don't want to see any passing. Shoot it like you're confident in shooting, and then he'll make it, and then he'll feel better. I feel like that's what they have to do. The set, like, it's not sad because players age, and he is at 39 or whatever age he is. He is still a much better athlete than any 39-year-olds that I ever saw when I was growing up. Like, this dude is still a specimen, but you're right. The lateral quickness doesn't look to be there. And what I may be looking too much into this, but what it looks like is if he misses on his first instinct on the first step, it is just harder for him to recover. And that's why it looks like he's getting blown by. But still, He's got the long arms. He's got the strips.
He's good help side.
He's boxing guys out and getting rebounds. And doesn't it seem like more and more as the story goes for this season that probably the only reason that he came back was because Steph asked him to? Like, he's just such a Steph guy. And that seems like, probably one of the main reasons why he did come back.
Yeah, he doesn't hide it either. Like, even when JJ told us about his conversation with Iguodala, like, he brought up Steph, and it was just like a full conversation from there. Like, Iguodala could just talk about Steph for so long. But yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Like, that, I guess I don't know if he had a sense that this season was going to be a little different in terms of, he has mentioned on his podcast a couple of times how he feels like he said something along the lines of like, we don't foul as much as, like the foul discrepancy between how we're fouling versus how we're not getting fouling. Like, that's not real. That's not real. Like, something's going on there. So yeah,
I mean, some of it is, I think Jordan Poole probably cries too much to the referees. So their instinct is to just like maybe sit on their whistle with him sometimes, because he's the only one who really attacks the basket. Steph attacks the basket too, but he's a little bit more crafty in his attacks and in his finishes.
Steph doesn't also sell contact as naturally, and sometimes he does it so blatantly, and they sometimes don't give it to him, even though it is a foul. Like, I think that this it's kind of like soccer. I've heard this for some reason for a long time ago, and apparently Messi. I don't know soccer, so maybe soccer heads are gonna. Michael Miles is gonna chew me out here, but apparently Messi used to be this very like guy who would just play the game, and he wasn't flopping, but he'd always get fouled, and he never got the call. And finally, he just started flopping, is because that's the only way the refs would give them calls. And so that's kind of how I feel like this it's probably been like this for a while, because I've heard of the term flopping since I was a child, but it just feels like that's even more of a thing in today's NBA, where guys falling forces the referees to make a call, and they almost always don't bite the whistle, which is like so frustrating, because it feels like a lot of guys get away with so many non-contact things. Like, Booker is just trained to do some facial expression on every single drive that makes it look like he got fouled. That's because, and I don't totally blame him, it works.
Yeah.
And he probably does get fouled a good amount of it too. But I just think it's just so frustrating that even, players just like falling is just like, players will fall, take themselves out of the play to force the referee to call something, and they won't let it like go through. It's just something I've been totally noticing way more this year, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, but that's just a rant I had to get off my chest.
So some more news is your boy Jonathan Kuminga is coming back, hopefully tomorrow.
They need him.
So the Andre minutes that he's playing right now will probably go back to Kuminga, and just hope that his frenetic style of play doesn't cause more injury to his ankle, because they do need him. They need him strong to close out the stretch, as what are they currently in fifth, right? They're like,
it changes every day, even when they don't play. Like, I have no clue.
I think they're fifth as of last night. After last night's win, I think they went into the fifth slot. They're tied with the Clippers for fifth. And who do they play tomorrow? Oh, the Clippers.
And who are they probably losing to tomorrow?
The Clippers. And T-Wolves 1 game back, Mavericks 2 games back, Lakers 2.5 games back. So are the Pelicans and the Thunder. Jazz 3 full games back of the Warriors. So still 5 through 12 within 3 games. That is not a crazy amount to overcome if you can go on a winning streak, but none of these teams can go on any sort of winning streak. All right, so Kuminga back, like I said. Gary Payton. The word from Warriors PR was that they reevaluated Gary Payton. They say he's beginning to intensify his on-court shooting. Doesn't sound like contact work yet, and will be reevaluated again in 10 days. So in 10 days would be almost, last week of March. I don't imagine he'll be back then, but they may go, he'll be back in a week, and that would put it right at the beginning of April, which is, I think, what they said when they traded for him and found out that he was still hurt, was beginning of April. So that would put them another 2 weeks. You're talking about how many games are left in the season by then? Not many.
Beginning of April, I think playoffs start April 9th.
Yeah, they would have like 4 games. They have 4 games in April to end the season.
Yeah. Those would be very important games in terms of trying to get a seed as well as integrating GP back into their system, which probably won't take that long, but he needs to get back to game speed in general.
What do you think about Steph's movie? Or is it going to interfere with the Warriors playoff run here?
Okay, yeah. Wait, you said something. Oh, those tickets were today, huh?
Did you not get them?
I forgot about it.
So what was the story? I know there's like a Steph movie because they showed it at the Cannes Film Festival, and I didn't hear anything else other than it was like a pretty fun movie. So was this showing like supposed to be just for public? Like what was going on with the showing that you were looking for tickets?
I saw an article on the Chronicle and I read it because it had Steph's picture on it, and I think they showed it at Sundance too, but it was just supposed to be some screening where there was one ticket package where you get the ticket, you get to watch the film at 6:30 and then go to like this exclusive party after. That was like $100. I was like, I'm not doing that. There was a ticket for like 9:30. There was only 2 showings for like some SF film festival that he was going to show, and it was for some reason in Oakland. But he was just. You said something like it would interfere with the playoffs potentially.
Well, I was just wondering because it's supposed to be the 13th
of
April.
Yeah.
And Ryan Coogler is the one who's supposed to present the movie.
Who is he from? Is he the Black Panther director?
Yeah, Creed, Fruitvale
Creed
Station.
too?
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, I totally want to go then.
Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything else, but
I don't know anything about the movie, but
he is not expected to attend. That is the case. He's not supposed to be there. So, yeah, screening and party, pretty expensive, but just the movie a little bit cheaper. Yeah, $30. All right. So next thing on the list is I don't know. Steph and Klay saved their butts. I don't know what else to say. We were watching Creed 3 on Saturday night, and then we ducked into a hole in the wall place, a little brewery spot, and we watched the second half of Warriors Bucks, and the entire second half of the game that we watched, they just continued to give up what was a double-digit lead all the way through until the end of regulation. And then they just blitzed them in overtime. Like they actually got behind, and then Steph bailed them out with I think that they were down 8 with like less than 2 minutes left. And then Steph just bailed them out. They go on to win that game thanks to Steph. And then yesterday against Phoenix, Klay just goes off for 34 in the first. He's like, I know he really respects Devin Booker, but something about Devin Booker makes him really mad.
You disagreed with my theory in the beginning of the season. Do you remember what it was?
Remind me.
It was that I thought that Klay in 2017 was on the trajectory. If he wasn't, I'm trying to remember who the best shooting guards were at the time. It wasn't Devin Booker. You could argue probably like a Paul George. Yeah, again, I'm not totally sure. But yeah, the shooting guard position, Klay was obviously like a top 3 player at. And then he goes down with the injury. And then while he's down, Devin Booker becomes like the best undisputed shooting guard in the league. And I was just wondering if like, that was the beef that like, now Book's the guy when it should have been Klay. That's what I thought, like kind of the under the mask stuff was telling me. But I remember you disagreeing with it. You and JJ both did not agree with it.
We're just being disagreeable, man, because it was you.
Do you think it has something to do with that at all then?
Yeah, I'm sure there's something to that. Who did Klay call out in the post press conference? He said Book, Harden, and DeRozan. Those are the 3 guys he named as far as matching up against some of the best 2s in the league.
Oh, Harden. Yeah, Harden was for sure the best at the time.
So The Warriors seem to be so reliant on three-pointers and
It's
on
so
making
sad.
three-pointers. And when they make three-pointers, for whatever reason, it energizes them, and their defense is a little bit better because they were making them yesterday. Phoenix was missing all of their threes, and then you had guys like who is it? Craig, who just did not want to shoot. He's like,
It was Okogie, right?
no, well, he was one, but there was the other dude,
Yeah, Torrey
the
Craig.
big buff dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just didn't want to shoot. So it was like the book show, and Ayton, Ayton could have probably just walked up to Looney and Draymond and just drop stepped into a post dunk or something every time, but he just loves that fadeaway. I was like, yep, keep taking it. That's fine with me, because you could probably shoot 85% if you just posted these dudes up. And and then CP was, not to say that was the worst CP's ever played against the Warriors, but he was such a non-factor. Has I guess he has been like that a little bit more of late, but man, that's not the CP that I'm reminded of playing. And then Steph kind of flexes biceps on him near the game at the end there. He doesn't I'm sure there's respect there, but Steph, he has memories of when CP was disrespecting him constantly early in his career, and he's letting CP have it.
Want to know what I think it was? Or maybe you probably know, but right when I saw it, right when I saw that play of Steph muscling CP to the hoop, I immediately was like, oh, that's like the same corner as when Steph crossed him, double behind the back, crossed him or whatever. And so that's what I thought Steph meant by this isn't 2014 anymore. I don't need to do these fancy dribble moves to get around you. I'm just going to go right through you.
CP actually stayed with him in this one. He didn't Steph's crazy didn't cross. Steph had to actually force himself to the baseline. And what I thought, it's not 2014 meant, is that CP would just push him around. That's what I thought he meant.
It's probably a lot of both, but that one to me just I only thought that because right when I saw Steph in that corner against CP, I just thought that exact thing, that baseline behind the back cross, one of Steph's greatest plays of all time.
Did you see I think it was a Twitter video of Steve Kerr talking about bad shots?
Mm-mm.
So there's another famous play against the Clippers.
Oh, against the Clippers. Yeah, I know exactly which one.
And he shoots that weird at the top of the key.
He just runs in a circle.
Yeah.
Dribbles low through people in a circle.
So Steve Kerr said, and he's said this before years ago too. He said, at that moment, what I learned is everything that I've been taught about what a bad shot is from Lute Olson, from Greg Popovich, from Phil Jackson. Steph takes this shot, and my instinct is to say, that's a bad shot, but it goes in. And so what I learned is that when Steph Curry takes a shot, there is no bad shot. So he just has to just be okay with those shots that he takes. I thought that was interesting.
That's what we need, more people like Steve Kerr. We need more old folks like Steve Kerr in the world that is able to change their opinion.
So not to take this on a little bit of a downer, but obviously the elephant in the room is the fact that Andrew Wiggins is still not back. Now, you can go on Reddit and Twitter and you can find any sort of excuse or reason or dark alley reason as far as why he's not back yet, but there's no concrete information, so there's nothing really for us to say. But they miss him, for one. They really, really do miss him. And if what I wonder is if the team themselves are maybe left a little bit in the dark, because I can't imagine they know if he's going, let's say that he's going to be out and he's not coming back this season. Don't you think Kerr needs to sort of finagle the rotation a little bit and go, okay, this is what we're going to have to go. And maybe he is, and I'm just not sure. But I would hope that there's this open, slightly cracked open door where they're like, we still think we're going to get Wiggs back, because, man, without him, you're seeing just the inconsistency in the defense, especially, and in their ability to get 2-pointers. Now, Wiggins will blow dunks and all of a sudden go up for a layup and dribble the ball, and the ball bangs off his knee. He'll do those things too, but still, there can be dependable moments where you're like, oh, we needed two, and then you see like a Wiggs floater, or you see like just all of a sudden Wiggs just decides to dunk on somebody, and they don't have that right now, especially with Kuminga. Now Kuminga will come back, but then that's even more of a wild card of, is this dude going to dribble the ball or shoot or hit his head on the side of the backboard or something? They just miss that consistency and his just constant pace of his game. And I think you've told us before, like, if he doesn't come back, like, they have no chance.
I think we've heard it from Plus Minus. I think we've all probably said it and thought it too, but it feels like, they don't have their, what Anthony Slater always refers to as their second best player in the playoffs. Like, yeah, that makes sense that they have no shot, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's such a homer take, but I still would feel semi-confident in them finding a way without him, just because of the fact that what Klay Thompson was in last year's playoffs, was like almost like a different player than what he is right now. I feel like he's, still hot and cold sometimes, but at least I just feel like there's something in him that would not necessarily replace what Wiggins did, but fill in for some of the missing spots what Wiggins did in last year's playoff, because Klay was like pretty bad, right, in last year's playoffs, and this year he's had some career months. So I would honestly like to see a lineup. I don't know if they've ever done it, but Steph, Klay, Draymond, Kuminga, DiVincenzo. I don't know if they've done that.
Kuminga at the 4.
Kuminga at the 4.
I feel like they've had to have run that lineup out there at least once.
So the thing is, when has Klay, Dre, and Steph, been on, how much have they played together? Especially when Kuminga started to find his way into the rotation and they started like DiVincenzo, because Steph went down both those times.
Yeah.
I could actually, again, I have cleaning the glass. I could 100% find this. And I could do that if you want to talk or something. But I think very easy to say if they don't have Wiggins, their second best player in last year's playoffs, they have zero chance. But also, like, I'm just such a Kuminga guy, and I'm just such a, like, what Klay has done this year. You get GP2 back. You have a really, like, Steph looks like he hasn't skipped a beat from, at all. It looks like he's maybe even like better. I don't know, but I think Kuminga has been testing some stuff in closing time and closing minutes, which is what they used to do with Jordan Poole. They just throw Jordan in at the end of the game and just be like, dude, just like go do whatever you want and go invent stuff. And I think they started doing that with Kuminga this year, win or lose. And Kuminga has been pulling out some like new shots that we don't see in the mid range. And it's like, that's what Wiggins does.
Yeah.
Like, can you do a little bit of that?
Okay. But I guess in both cases, you're not super confident either shot goes in until they go in, right? For Kuminga and Wiggins.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because I may be more comfortable with Wiggins shooting it, but there are moments
push shots he does
there are moments where he's like way off.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about. It was actually probably in our 2K Discord about the idea that all of a sudden what fans or kind of what the other teams are worried about is playoffs start and the Warriors get everybody back the way that they want it. And this is what happened last year, where Klay comes back, Draymond gets hurt. Steph is hurt and has to miss the has to miss the end of the season. And Jordan Poole is playing heavy minutes that were great for him. And all of a sudden Steph comes back in the beginning of the playoffs, and then they just go on this run. And so I think if I am other teams, I look at that and I go, oh my God, not again, right? Wiggins comes back at the beginning of the playoffs. GP2 is healthy at the beginning of the playoffs. Kuminga's playing. They'll figure out whatever this Anthony Lamb, Ty Jerome thing is. And they just have everybody, Draymond, Klay, like everybody's just ready to go. That would be the perfect absolute scenario for Warriors fans. But I'm going to take it in a different way. I think it's a little bit of fool's gold. Not only because we are just so unsure about Wiggins, GP, we think GP's coming back, but who knows? My worry is really about Draymond, and I've just had this worry all year long about this guy's health. Right now, he's playing with a jacked up finger. He had the calf thing. He's basically said
he rolled his ankle.
He rolled his ankle. He rolled his ankle. I think he's gonna be done for like KD, man. He's gonna be done for weeks. And yet he continues to say, there's no tomorrow. Like, I have to keep playing. There's no time that we can rest. And it's like the opposite of load management when you're in a race for these last 3 playoff spots. So I would love for that to be the story. I think that's a great, like, romanticizing. It's a great thing. Like, oh, we can do this again. I'm just not sure how realistic it is. Does
And
it
I also
feel
feel like I'm
realistic?
a little confident because you look at what they're doing, at what the West looks like. Like people like to say it's super competitive in those seeds, but you could also look at it as like they're just not that good.
Yeah, they just keep losing.
Like yeah, like I think you could bring up legitimate question marks about every single team out there. Jokic, can a team led by a center who can't defend, the Warriors have beat them? Can they do it all? You look at the Sacramento Kings, a team that hasn't been there. When's the last time a team that hasn't been there was able to win it all? Like had not touched the playoffs ever in their careers except for a select few. And it wasn't the biggest guys and it wasn't as a unit, so and then you look at the third seed. What is it, Memphis?
It took Steph and Klay and Draymond 2 years, right? They had to go through the year where they beat the Nuggets and then they lost to the Spurs, and then the next year they lost to the Clippers, then the third year is when they took the leap.
And that's not even talking about Sacramento's defense, which they're ranked like 27th in the league, led by Mike Brown of all people. So you look at the third seed, Memphis Grizzlies. We actually don't think John Morant's going to be back now, is what it sounds like. And when he comes back, like there's going to be an adjustment period. Can they just pick it off right where they left off? The number 4 seed, the Phoenix Suns. Although I love Kevin Durant, I think he's one of the best players in the league. Can you just so easily go into what I think is the best roster with like Durant is a focal point of your team. He's the best player of your team. Your offense runs through him and Devin Booker. Can you just, do it without any, without like the amount of time or cohesion? Cohesion is the word I'm looking for. Can you, play with KD when you hadn't played with him basically the entire season and you're just going to do it in the playoffs? Like, yeah, he's probably the one player where it probably would potentially work. But if there's a question mark, it's the idea that your best player, you haven't played with him this season. So, and you keep going at the Clippers, like they're just like sometimes butt cheeks, but I still like them. But that's kind of the train you've been on earlier in the season. Like they haven't proven to you anything, and here they are again, like not really proving to anyone anything. They have been a little better as of late, and then you get to the Warriors, and it's like, tell me all of those potential negatives I just brought up about every single team doesn't give you more hope. Like this isn't a year where there's a clear favorite. And if it is, it's in the East. It's Milwaukee.
Okay, but Denver's still 46-22.
They've lost their last 3 or 4 in a row.
They've
to
lost
the Spurs.
They've lost their last 3. But this has been like almost a coast to coast thing for them, right? As far as just being the top team in the league. You know what the most impressive thing about Sacramento is? They have the best road record in the Western Conference. 19-13. Even Denver's only 16-16 away from Denver. And then you have the Clippers 18-18. And those are the only good road records. Everybody else is under 500 on the road. And the Warriors are third worst in the West with 7-26.
What is the 7-26? Oh my God.
Okay, so here's another question, though, which is, why do the Grizzlies play so well without Ja? They've won 3 in a row. They've jumped past the Kings again, back into that number 2 spot. The Warriors play them coming up pretty soon. We'll look at the road schedule for the Warriors. It's actually this Saturday. So it's so up and down, and it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and it's KD getting injured when it seemed like the Suns were really going to take control and maybe even,
they would potentially have been my pick.
Spot. Yeah.
Had he not gotten hurt,
So the home records, Denver's number 1 at 30-6. Grizzlies are number 2 at 28-5. The Warriors are number 3 at 29-7, which to me makes it so important that they get to 4. But I don't think they can get to 4 because getting to 4 means jumping over the Kings, who are who I'm sorry, the Suns, jumping over the Suns,
who just lost to the Warriors,
who are a game and a half over the Warriors. right now. So I
It's
don't know.
possible.
They would have
But
if you told me they were able to play a first round matchup and have home court advantage, I would feel so good about their
mhm,
chances. But then every other round that they wouldn't have that advantage. So that would be the negative. But
depends on if there's an upset.
yeah, which there could be.
Um,
There totally could be.
this is the one year where it feels like kind of upsets in almost every single seed is possible.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't know if that says anything about how competitive it is in the West or just how bad, like, or how unimpressive everyone is. But yeah, I mean, to me, you say 1.5 games behind the Phoenix Suns, who I don't know if they're on a 2-game losing streak. I think they had Kings and Warriors. I don't know if that was a back 2 games in a row, but they lost both of those. And
Suns have lost 2 in a row.
so 2 in a row. So Kings, Warriors. So they're 1.5 games back behind that team without Kevin Durant, who to acquire Kevin Durant, you had to get rid of the one guy who's probably the best on Stephen Curry out of anyone.
Steph was so happy. He was so
Got rid of
happy he
Mikal
didn't have
Bridges,
no Mikal Bridges last night.
got rid of Cam Johnson, who was amazing for that team, took Jay Crowder's spot, who then also got rid of Jay Crowder to get Kevin Durant, who's not playing. So I'm here to say that like their depth is like not good, especially without KD. Like it's totally possible you get in front of them until I come to my senses and say, "Oh man, we got a 5-game road trip."
which we'll end the podcast with that talk. All right, just really quickly, the Anthony Lamb Ty Jerome scenario. So they let the Lester Quinones 10-day expire, which means they only have 14, which means no Ty Jerome, and Anthony Lamb has already maxed out his possible games as a 2-way. So they have to make a decision. And the decision seems to be pretty easy to me.
Yeah.
You sign Anthony Lamb, and that activates Ty Jerome for 5 games or whatever the number is that he has left to play. But they're saving up this spot where they're just not paying for that 15th guy, and it's not counting against whatever the multiplier is on their dollar amount because of the luxury tax.
Why is TK the only one that knows that? Like, I feel like that's like information that really no one except for Tim Kawakami knew, which is like, hey, every day they have their 15th guy rostered, like that costs them an X amount of money. So that's why they're not doing it, because it saves them money literally every single day. Why is that not accessible information to us?
I don't think I don't think the national broadcasters or whatever, they're not that dialed in, right? Like
Yeah.
no, like Slater, TK, Marcus, the way that they're dialed in, and some of these other beat writers, Monty Poole, and who's the guy for the Merc? Dalton something or other?
Dalton Johnson? Is he
is he Warriors?
He's Warriors. I don't know if he's Mercury. But
Oh, maybe one of the newspapers. Like those guys, all of those folks know it. But yeah, it's just not that big of a deal because championship teams don't really care about who their 15th guy is. It only matters because the Warriors need these players. Now, I'm gonna sort of bring this all back around and say, I mentioned earlier, Iguodala was getting the Lamb minutes. Great. Andre is very smart. He may not hit the threes. He's not going to hit the threes that Lamb hits, but he'll be better on the other side of the ball. Kuminga will get some of those minutes as well. He won't be pulled out for Anthony Lamb here like he sometimes is. Greatest benefactor here of this whole scenario is Moses Moody. Moses Moody actually played yesterday against the Suns, and those were money minutes. Now, the Warriors were up when he came in, so it's not like there was pressure on him to succeed or to, hit this shot or else you're coming out, buddy. There was none of that. But he was actually going to the hole. Now, he has a problem when he gets to the rim in that he either gets blocked or he blows it. But he had a finish, and then he had a one that went in and out, and he got to the free throw line, which looked really nice, looked really aggressive. He had an idea. He wasn't just jumping to jump. And I thought those were pretty good minutes. But that also seems to be an inconsistency in what he normally does for them. So I'm not sure what to make of that because that's not really his game. his game is to drill threes and be long on defense. But a lot of times when he's running the offense and he just they have to reset when he gets the basketball. Sometimes like, oh, I'm in the wrong spot. We got to reset and start all over. But do you think that Moses Moody, how many games are left, 14 or whatever, he's got a few games here where there's no Anthony Lamb to take his minutes. Maybe he can impress Steve and get some trust in playing, because otherwise all he's doing is he's playing until they decide on what to do with Anthony Lamb.
Yeah. A couple of things there. I think on plus minus they said that decision was coming within like 2 or 3 days.
Okay, so sooner than that.
That's what it sounded like. But also, I texted you and Ben. I think it was yesterday. I pulled up to go get it because I said, like, I didn't say this, but I don't like to criticize like Steve Kerr that much, or like it doesn't feel right sometimes because he's just this like, really credentialed coach with all these championships. But if there was one thing to criticize him about this year, for me at least, it's the lack of like maybe playing the guys who you realize that, hey, we are lacking in the division of scoring inside. Therefore, I'm not going to play the guys who are capable of scoring inside. That's where I like criticize them a little bit. So I said, like, I think Kerr needs to realize that he needs someone who can attack the hoop. And I said, honestly, the young guys attack Poole, Kuminga, Moody, whatever you think about them, like they attack the hoop. And I think that's valuable. And Moody was just attacking the hoop yesterday, man. He was making me look right. So I'm hoping he can grab a couple. I'm sure he'll play tomorrow in LA. That would I'd almost bet on him playing tomorrow, especially with no Iguodala and no Anthony Lamb. And I hope he does it. I hope he attacks the hoop. Might be tougher to do it against that team, but I hope he, gives it a shot because they need someone like that. And even though you're right, like we have seen him, the finishing hasn't looked as good this year, and that's honestly why he started getting racking up those DMPs to begin with, is because he would drive and have nowhere to go, and Steve Kerr would consider that a turnover, which is right in my book. But I mean, we watched him in Santa Cruz like try to dunk on people, and remember Mac McClung blocked this shot. They called it a foul, but then they reversed it because Mac McClung did block his shot, but he's fearless. He goes up and tries to dunk it. I think he had almost a potential dunk in Los Angeles last time they played the Clippers. So, like dunk on someone. So I think, and a couple of those putback dunks throughout the season. He did one in Detroit when we went and watched Warriors Detroit. He just had this like two hand, just caught it off the back and put back. He's athletic, and I think they need to give that a shot more, because I bet if you gave me one of those paint charts or the shot charts where it's all colored and like, the green, when it's all colored and all green, that means they take a good percentage of their shots there. I'm sure if you looked into the paint, it's like not as many shots are taken and or shots made in the paint. And I think Moody can bring some of that, and I think that's essential.
He might
as long as Wiggs isn't here.
He might be more long than he is actually athletic, but being long and being tall with long arms is a helpful trait in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think about someone like Norman Powell going like, oh, Moses Moody, barbecue chicken. Like I just see how, some players just probably just want to go at him because they know his confidence is down. They know Kerr has been wishy-washy in, putting him in and taking him out. And they probably can sense that, maybe emotionally he's probably pretty frustrated. But I would love to see the guy play well. I don't know if it's in the cards for him to play well. This might be just a lost season for him. But
it's probably where I side with too.
But, part of the reason they drafted him where they did was because they thought that he had the pedigree and the mindset for this grind of professional basketball. So there's something there. He just gonna have to find it and make it. He's gonna have to show some value there. All right, the last thing before we go, I wanted to look at was just like you said, this 5-game road trip. So the Warriors, they play Wednesday in LA. Did they beat the last time they beat the Clippers? Was that in LA, or they lost in LA and then they won in San Francisco? I think is what happened, right? Yep. The LA game was like the game before the All-Star break.
It was the one Wiggins had an insane game against the Wizards. It looked like he was back, and then this issue came up where he missed the Clippers game in LA because of this personal reason, and he hasn't been back since.
Then the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are kind of been stuttering all year long. They just like Trey had a a big game the other day. And they still lost by like 20 points to Minnesota. Memphis Grizzlies. Now this is the same team that beat them last time. They're going back to Memphis. Desmond Bane kind of getting up for playing Klay. Dylan Brooks always gets up to play Draymond and Steph.
They better all get up for Dylan Brooks now. Like if there's someone who's painted themselves as someone that the Warriors should get up for, like that's where, I think logic tells me that they're going to lose that game. But if I want to think about, the Warriors they didn't like how that last one felt, where, with how Dylan Brooks was acting and how he was talking around the whole team. Like, I'm wondering if they're going to put a little extra into that specific game because of Dylan Brooks.
To me, Bane's going to get his. He's just a really good player. Dylan Brooks is a minus on offense, especially when there's no Ja because he just shoots more. No Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark is hurt. Jaren Jackson, he plays fairly well against the Warriors, but he also fouls a lot against the Warriors. The guys who kill them, or at least killed them the last game,
the shooters,
Luke Kennard and Conchar, and then is the other guy Aldama. Those guys killed the Warriors because they can't guard the 3-point line. Excuse me. And like, how about, Desmond's going to get his. He's a really good player. Let's stop those guys from just lighting us up. And so we have a chance. And like you said, I hope that they do. I hope they took that last one personally, because that was not a good look for them to play the Grizzlies like that.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I'm with you. And they didn't have Kuminga last time. I don't know how much that changes, but I still think Kuminga is just trust them on basically anyone to guard, especially on that Memphis team. So I did, by the way, look up that lineup. It's not happy.
No.
Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Dante DiVincenzo. Their effective field goal percentage is 56.4, which is like pretty good, I believe. But apparently they're like a minus 26.6.
Oh, wow.
Which I feel like could be a couple of things. Kuminga was not the player who he is in the beginning of the season.
How many minutes
in the beginning of the season?
How many minutes has that lineup played total?
It's possessions. It's not minutes. They don't give me minutes. They gave me 44 possessions.
So that's not
which could be. It's not a lot. But I don't know how much that is though in terms of minutes.
Like probably like half of a game all season long, something like that.
Maybe even less. Yeah, probably about half. Probably about half of 2 quarters there. But yeah, you could say like, Kuminga, maybe they tried that in the beginning of the season and Kuminga and DiVincenzo were just not in the like where they are right now. Maybe lately they tried it and obviously the team needed time to mesh with Steph back. I still believe in it. It sounds good, right? A lot of guys who could switch with a lot of offense. I think it would be, I think they should give that one a shot again. But yeah, are we predicting the road trip?
Well, they have 2 more games. Houston, that is next Monday. And then Dallas, who is also really struggling with Kyrie and Luka and injuries and all that. And so that's 5 games. And I do think we should predict. I know Klay thinks they're going 5-0. I don't know how he thinks that, but he believes that they're back. He believes that the road trip is they're going to show that they can play on the road. I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to go. I think they win 2 out of 4, and those 2 games are Atlanta and Houston.
Isn't it 5?
I know, but this is Dallas game that I'm conflicted about, because I think I would have to see how, because Kyrie's questionable, I think, for his upcoming game. If it's no Kyrie and just Luka, if it's both of them, I'm not sure if there's a difference because they're not playing well with both of those guys. But I'm gonna say 2-2, and then depending on that game against Dallas, probably 2-3. But there's a chance for 3-2.
Yeah, I think if you want to. If I do my spiel that I did last week, where it's like, what have they told us they'll do, and you've done it prior, like, 500, or, like, I think what have they told us they'll do this season with this specific road trip? 1-5, right? Like, that's what they've told us throughout the season. 1-4, that they're just going to, Houston and probably lose the rest. If you want to feel a little inspired and optimistic like myself after these past couple games, 2-4 or 2-3. Sorry. Yeah. 2-3. But I feel like a 3-2 is in play potentially. I think, the plus minus guys felt really good about the Dallas game. They felt really good about the Houston game. So that's already 2 right there. You don't feel as great about the Dallas game. I get it. Kyrie, tends to take those ones more seriously against the Warriors. And then Luka's just always been
really well against the Warriors offensively for sure. Coming
Yeah.
home though, Philly is the next game. So next Friday is Philly coming in. Then Timberwolves, who are right there, right behind them. Pelicans are right there, right behind them. And then they need to blow the doors off the Spurs. And then that takes us through the end of March. So the next 9 games, 5 away, and then you come back for 4 at home. And then after that, it's away, home, away to end the season. This is it. This is who they are. They're going to have to show us.
Yeah, if okay, we should just say it right now, or I should say it, because I think you probably already believe this. But if we're going into the road trips or just the next, let's predict our next five games, and we're going into it with this same mindset come April of we're not totally sure, they're done. We could just say, I'll stop it. They're done.
For them to go 500 for the rest of the season, they're going to have to win a road game or 2. So 5, 6, 7 road games and 5 home games to end the season. So there's only 12 games left. Holy cow. Jeez. That's nuts. So yeah, so they're going to have to win some home games to reverse this trend and to actually make sure that they're going to be 500. And if they're 500, that would take their record, if they're 500, to, let's see. That would take their record to, 42 and 40, I think, something like that.
Disgusting.
Yeah, so.
Isn't that what they went in the 2021 season, 2020-2021 season?
No, I think they were 43 and 39.
Yeah, because there's only 71 games.
82 season. Games. Oh, right. No, you're right. It was 39 and 33. I think was the record.
Yeah, it'd be so. If that is the record, make it look really inspiring that it was the games you lost were against the really good teams and you barely lost them.
So actually, I'm off. They have 13 games left, not 12. So yeah.
Okay.
So they would have to go 500 to be. You can't go 513 games, but 7-6 to finish the season 7-6. They would be at 43 and 39. So I mean, that's kind of what they have to do. 43 and 39 probably has them in the number 5 spot. Right. Yeah. So that's where they need to be. All right. That is it from here. We will be back next week. We'll see what happens with We Want Winners, because I'm sure Rod's going to want to talk about all the news that the Niners have, all the pickups and all the free agencies, all the players that they lost. Jimmy G to the Raiders.
Ooh,
Jimmy G's going to be tearing up Vegas, man. All right, Nate, what's coming up on the BAM?
I did a podcast with a guy on Twitter at Brado NBA. He's a Rockets guy. He's around my age too, so it was a fun conversation. That's the latest and greatest there, but it was good. You guys, whoever can, check it out.
Rockets talk.
Did
you ask him about my guy, Jabari?
Jabari? Yeah. We had a full conversation about Jabari. Speaking of Jabari, the dude went off last night against the Celtics. The Rockets beat the Celtics. If we were like, oh yeah, the Rockets is an easy gimme game, they just beat the Celtics. And they finally started trying Jabari Smith Jr. at small ball 5, and it did really well.
There you go. Yeah, he's still I feel like they don't talk about him as much as they talk about some of the other rookies. So I just
he doesn't create. What we kind of came to the conclusion of is he's almost like not necessarily an apples to apples comparison because of how this player has been lately, but prior to the start of the season, I comped him to a Mikal Bridges in the sense of a 3-and-D guy who, at best will be a third best player on a championship team. That's his ceiling, right? And obviously, Mikal has done some stuff where he is now doing shot creation in Brooklyn, and it like looks really good. But with Jabari, it's just going to be catch and shoot, one dribble pull up, fade away from the mid range. That's how he's getting his offense. He's not necessarily breaking down a defender. And I feel like the guys that get talked about, the Palos, the Jadens, the the J-Dubs, like those can like create their bucket pretty efficiently too.
Who would you rather have, him or Keegan?
Depends on who I am.
No, who you? You're you.
I'm not me. I got to be a team. I've got to be a team here. If I'm the Kings, I'd rather have Keegan. If I'm the Warriors, I'd rather have Keegan. If I'm any other team that has a contending shot, I'd pick Keegan. If I was anyone else who didn't have contention plans, I'd pick Jabari.
Okay. If you're building a team from scratch, who do you
Jabari.
take? Okay. There you go. All right, that's it from here. We will talk to y'all next week. For Bry, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.